So thank you very much, Julia and Alexei, for two very interesting papers. They're well written, they're well researched, they provide sort of systematic coverage of two very interesting and important aspects of state development, modern state development in Ukraine. They both focus specifically on local decision making. Alexei's paper is concerned with regional and local government, and in particular, the effects of the 2014 reforms, which sought to strengthen regional governance. And he makes the interesting argument that the new system embedded existing patronal networks that established new local party fiefdoms that were separate and often in conflict with the national structure of power. And while these structures, he argues, provides an obstacle to authoritarian centralization, so we're a source of pluralism within the system, they create negative externalities in terms of corruption. And that comes out much stronger in your paper than it did in the presentation, the negative externalities that are generated as a result of this system. So what are the consequences of patronal rule? He also examines how this system has been challenged since 2022. And I think this is really interesting. And this is something I'd like to sort of press him a little bit on. Challenged by a new form of dualism that exists at the local level with the creation of military administrations. And as he said towards the end, we've certainly seen this in Kiev, the conflict between these two structures of power at the local level. Julia's paper, in contrast, focuses on the challenge of reconstruction in Ukraine and the actors that she argues very persuasively are best placed to manage reconstruction. And she focuses in particular on the role of civil society organizations, showing how they've proven to be key sources of service provision during the war, how they've sort of filled a vacuum that has been created at the local level. And she shows this with evidence from important data on levels of public support for the activities of these civil society organizations. And she argues, and this is, I think, the basis for some policy recommendations that I think we should discuss in detail. She argues that these community-based initiatives might become the basis for implementing any future reconstruction plans. The two papers are, of course, connected. On the one hand, Alexei seeks to explain problems of local accountability in Ukraine, which are really important and that we do need to understand. And he explains these problems of local accountability by this sort of argument about patronal power structures. And on the other hand, Julia sort of picks up from where Alexei sort of concludes, really, and she puzzles over how this system of local power can be used to implement any reconstruction plans. So with that, my summary of the two papers, I just want to kick off the discussion with a couple of questions. So firstly, to Alexei, firstly, in your paper, which I found very interesting. So this system that's created in 2014 creates conflict, both between patronal networks at the center and locally, and also between party systems at the center and locally. And it's sort of an empirical question, really, one that I don't really understand. I don't understand why national party elites allowed this to happen, because it was blindingly obvious what was going to happen in Ukraine. Yeah. You only need to go back. I mean, petroleum isn't a post-Soviet phenomenon. It's you can trace it back to the Soviet period. I mean, these people writing about this stuff in the late Soviet period. It was obvious what was going to happen. So why did national parties, given that they're not very happy at all, and Alexei shows us this as analysis, they're not happy with the outcome of this reform. Why did they not put in place the checks that would militate against the formation of these local parties of power? Why did they not put in place checks that would militate against these petrol networks? You talked about term limits, and I'd just be interested to know whether that was ever discussed or not. And then just thinking in terms of the bigger picture here and what this means in terms of the future, and this is more speculative. So we currently have this sort of dual structure of power at the local level in Ukraine. What happens when that's removed at the end of the war? Are national elites going to allow this system to re-establish itself, or are they likely to use this as an opportunity to re-establish their dominance? So it's centralization, an inevitable consequence of the war. It's unclear at the moment where this is going, but it's very unlikely that they're going to allow the situation to return to the situation that existed before 2022, based on your analysis. For Yulia, again, I've got just a naive question. This is sort of an empirical question. What's holding up the reconstruction plans? Yeah, in your opinion, what's holding up the reconstruction plans? There have been many plans around for a long time. Back in 2022, we were told that the government was about to unveil its plans. As you say in your paper, there's been little sort of development. So what's holding them up? More important, bigger picture is what sort of Alexei's paper means in terms of your understanding of what's likely to work best at the local level in terms of reconstruction. So what Alexei describes is an extremely complex structure of power at the local level, very complex, creates huge sort of coordination problems and creates conflict. We see this in places like Kiev at the moment. Who is going to coordinate reconstruction at the local level? I know you think the money should be given to civil society organizations, but who's going to coordinate their activities? You need state structures at the local level that are going to have the capacity to coordinate this activity. So how do civil society organizations grasp this opportunity without clear lines of administration? So there's one sentence in your paper, Yulia, you argue that the rapid re-establishment of self-government is essential for effective recovery. But so what does that mean, though? What form should these local state institutions take? The re-establishment of the post-2014 system that Alexei describes. Alexei is saying that this system doesn't provide the transparency, doesn't provide the checks that is sort of needed for the implementation of effective sort of reconstruction plans. So I'd just like to hear a little bit more about what you think is going to work at the local level institutionally, because the state has to be involved in this. The state can't be bypassed. The state is a key actor. But thank you very much for two fantastic papers, really interesting, full of lots of fascinating data. and grappling with really, really important questions. So thank you very much.